Hey y'all, I am going into my comment section. Brother Uno always has those books. So, I'm gonna read out of this book I just got a hold to. My homegirl told me that she was from the Comanche tribe, and she is here in Texas from, I think, East Texas. Yeah, East Texas. Okay, so we're gonna go to page, and we know sometimes the pages are off. Let's try it. Okay. No. Wait. Yeah, I don't know what just happened. I did not say do all these. Well, this made it a little bit easier. I can't click on it. Oh. So mad. I'm coming, y'all. I'm sorry. I guess it's the only way. I'm gonna be like, sis, they already did this anyway. No, what is going on? Are they trying to drive me crazy, y'all? Let's try this again. I don't have that much time. Anyway, this is the name of the book that I'm reading out of. Page 108. I'm going to link it in the description. My homegirl told me she was Comanche. So, Comanche, a Native American people belonging to the Plains Indians group, for whom the horse was an inherent part of life and culture. The Comanche were considered among the finest horsemen of all the Indian nations, a warlike people largely open to new ideas. The Comanche were also buffalo hunters and had a formidable reputation for stealing cattle and riding horses from other tribes, a trait that would cause many fights with other Native Americans. The Comanche allegedly were responsible for killing more white men than any of the tribe. They were also slave traders. The traditional territory of the Comanches was known as the Comancheria and encompassed the lands that we now know as eastern New Mexico, southern Colorado, northeastern Arizona, southern Kansas and Oklahoma, and the majority of northwest Texas. The Comanche are believed to have been an offshoot of the Shoshone, who broke away around 1700 when the Dakota Sioux pushed the Shoshone back into the mountains. The offshoot Comanche were driven toward the south. The horses that were to prove such as such an essential part of their lives were acquired from the Pueblo after their successful resistance to the Spanish, which resulted in the Spanish leaving their horses behind in Pueblo territory. Indeed, it was the Comanche who supplied the horses to traders from both France and America, and also to the hopeful gold prospectors who traveled through Comanche territory on their way to California. The tribe also had access to the thousands of feral horses that ranged through their territory. The Shoshone, Comanche, and Kiowa tribes were all also known as snakes by explorers such as George Catlin. And we know that Mr. Catlin probably was an invader. The Comanches themselves were subdivided into many different bands of approximately 100 members each. These bands were part of larger divisions, of which there had been three prior to 1750: the Jupes, the Cosotakas, the Yamparikas, and that's the third group. In the decade after 1750, many of the Cosotakas split away from the others and moved to the southeast, a move that caused friction between them and the original Comanches. Comanche did not have one single chief who controlled the whole tribe. Instead, they had a number of leaders who counseled the group according to its needs at any one time. For example, different styles of leadership would be necessary during times of peace than were appropriate during war. War was a way of life for the Comanche, and the longest battle they waged was against the Mexicans. This particular fight ran on for nearly 40 years. Traditionally, the Comanche would lead their raids into Mexican territories at the time of the full moon, so that they had the element of surprise combined with the visibility that the full moon gave them. This strategy gave rise to the term Comanche moon. Initially, the Comanche were hunter-gatherers. Women as well as men would hunt. Subsequently, though, when the tribes moved from the Rocky Mountains to the plains, hunting became the job of the men. Deer, wild mustang, bear, elk, and buffalo were all captured and eaten. The fur, bones, and teeth were all made good use of. The Comanche were also not adverse to raiding Texas in search of cattle. The Comanche would eat birds and fish only when there was nothing else. This meaty diet was supplemented by berries, fruits, and nuts. Gathering these was the task of the women. The Comanche did not cultivate the staple crops of the Native Americans, such as corn, maize, and tobacco, but instead acquired them through trading or raiding. When they wanted to cook meat or vegetables, the Comanche women would dig a hole in which they then lined with the skins or the stomach of a buffalo to make it waterproof. Hot stones made the water boil and enabled the food to be cooked. The metal pots of the Spanish and other European settlers would make this domestic task much easier. A delicacy for the Comanche hunters was the curdled milk from the stomachs of buffalo cows that were still suckling. In common with the other plains Indians, the Comanche were very hospitable and prepared something to eat whenever a visitor arrived. This meant that the people not used to such a custom took it as read that the Comanche ate at all hours of the day or night. Like other plains Indians, the Comanche lived in teepees, the portable home made of skins draped around a cone-shaped construction of loose poles. Their clothing was simple. For the men, a breechcloth, deerskin leggings, and moccasin. In the winter, the upper torso was covered in buffalo hide robes. Small boys went naked except in very cold weather. Women traditionally wore deerskin dresses with the beautiful fringing, Hebrew fringes, with the beautiful fringing along the hems and sleeves. These dresses were often beaded or had metalwork inserts that were similar to the mirror work done in India, in which small pieces of mirror are stitched into the pattern of the fabric. The women also wore moccasins and buffalo hide robes. Young girls, unlike their brothers, did wear clothes, breechcloths from the time they were babies until they were old enough to wear smaller replicas of the clothes worn by the women. Comanche men were proud of their earrings. The woman folk pierced the men's ears with as many as 8 holes, which would be ornamented with shells or loops of wire. The men also had facial tattoos, as well as markings on their chest and arms. These took the form of geometric designs, both design and color for the choice of the individual, although black was universally used in the case of war paint. Comanche women like to paint the very insides of their ears a brilliant red. When a Comanche died, the corpse was wrapped in a blanket and placed on a horse with a rider. The rider would then carry the body until he found a place that was right for the burial of the body. The burial place was marked by stones and boulders. Then the rider returned, his task completed. The possessions that had belonged to the dead person were burned, and the mourning began. As in other tribes, the chief mourner would slash his or her arms as a demonstration of grief. The Christian missionaries, however, persuaded the Comanche that the proper way to respect their dead was to bury them in wooden coffins in the ground. They came over and influenced every bit of our lives, okay? Because the Comanche were on the move much of the time, unlike the settled native peoples, it made no sense for them to have possessions or utensils that were in any way breakable. This means that fragile clay pottery was of no use to them. What they had in abundance is available material was the buffalo, and as well as eating the animal, the Comanche made use of the horn, bones, and hides for almost all their household goods. The lining of the buffalo's stomach made a water bag. It could also make a vessel which, when stretched and hung between a framework of sticks, made a sort of waterproof cooking pot, as described previously. Even the dung of the buffalo, fibrous and dry, was used as fuel for fires. For the Europeans, the Comanche were something of a double-edged sword. Y'all, this is us written all over it. Were able to adapt any new circumstances to their own favor, they made good traders. However, their fearlessness and predilection for raids was unnerving. The Comanche were also involved in a seemingly endless series of war with any and all of the other Great Plains tribes. This meant that the tribe were prey to political maneuvering and exploitation by the U.S. government, as well as the Spanish and French colonial settlers. There was very nearly a peace pact between the Comanche and the white man, but this was stymied when the government refused to describe a boundary between the Comanche lands and the territory of Texas. Why would they describe a boundary that will box them in from stealing? I mean, let's be clear. We're talking about thieves and invaders, okay? Despite all this seems chaos, the Comanche were able to stay independent and, unlike any other Indians, even managed to increase the scope of their territory. Tragically, it was not the politics of the white man that caused the most injury to the Comanche, but his diseases. The worst of these, smallpox. Where did the smallpox come from? It came from the invaders putting it in blankets and giving it to the indigenous people. It ravaged the tribe in 1817. So they were strong. They couldn't outsmart them. They couldn't outwar them. They couldn't boss them around. So they gave them blankets with smallpox in it. It ravaged the tribe in 1817 and again in 1848. 1817. So 30 years later, they were still trying to kill them off. Measles and cholera also took their toll. The population of the tribe, it is estimated, would have dropped from approximately 20,000 to 5,000 by the 1870s. So this is, hey Tasha, shout out to you, peace and power to you. This is what happened to a lot of your direct relatives. They were killed off by the invaders by smallpox and all the other diseases they brought with them, because it's too many books out here that tell us that we were clean, we didn't have a lot of disease, we're the chosen people. The creator wouldn't put disease among us. You know, he had his own punishments. These people brought this stuff in. It must have seemed a much easier prospect faced with a weakened Comanche nation for the U.S. government to start forcing the tribe onto designated reservations. Toward the end of the 1860s, they offered a standard of living that included schools for the children, Christian churches, right, and money. So they needed to brainwash the youth so generations would pass and you not even know who you are or your own history. Let's be clear. They offered a standard of living that included schools for the children, Christian churches, and money in return for the Comanche lands ranging from 62,000 square miles. In return for this, the government suggested that the Comanche should squeeze themselves into fewer than 5,000 square miles along with Apache, Arapaho, Cheyenne, and Kiowa peoples. So they wanted all y'all to get in one area, despite the fact that this land was not theirs. And y'all know I read this stuff and I get so mad. And we're gonna look in here. Let me say something. Okay. Part of this disagreement was that the government would put a stop to the white buffalo hunters who were slaughtering the animals on a grand scale. Right. And that never happened. But the government could not or would not stop the buffalo hunters despite the agreement because they liars. The buffalo was how we survived. So why would they stop that? It was them that was paying the people to kill them. I mean, we're talking about a sick, twisted people, and people are wondering why we're in the condition that we're in today. Lost, uncaring of who you are and where you come from, your connection to this land. How the Christian church was brought in by these foreigners, these invaders, and these same people today are trying to ban others from coming into the country. How about let's do a recall? Let's just start over, wipe the slate clean. Let's get everybody out of here, and we're gonna start with the invaders that slaughtered all of the indigenous peoples, including Donald Trump. We got him on camera on one of these videos I did, and he was just saying, the Indians don't look like the Indians. Those are not the Indians that we know. He know who we are, okay? He knows who we are. Now, buffalo were a fundamentally important part of the Comanche way of life. Therefore, the tribe, under the leadership of White Eagle, retaliated by launching an attack on a group of white hunters in 1874. The Comanche were decimated. The survivors rounded up and forced onto the reservation. Fewer than 10 years later, the buffalo were just about extinct. Why? I did a video on that. Y'all check out this video list because they killed them. And when I thought about it, the buffalo kept coming up. They killed and killed and killed till there was no more buffalo. Almost extinct. Forced them onto the reservation. Fewer than 10 years later, the buffalo were just about extinct, forcing an end to the traditional way of life of the Comanche. The last of the free members of the tribe moved onto the reservation in 1875 at Fort Sioux in Oklahoma. These Comanche, few as they were, quickly became disillusioned with their supposedly ideal new way of life. A year later, fewer than 200 warriors were left to battle in the Buffalo Hunters' War of 1877. The Comanche Code. During the Second World War, the U.S. government had the idea of using the Comanche language as a code to befuddle the enemy, Germans. In order to do this, 17 young men were trained in the language. They took your language. Okay. Ironically, the language had nearly died out after Comanche children were placed in boarding schools in the 19th century where they were encouraged to speak English. Forget who you are and become what we are. That's why we are monsters to each other to this day. And punished for speaking their native language. And when you do speak it, and then they're going to put in the movie Roots, him speaking, saying his name was Kunta Kinte. Let's be clear. This was an example of what they did to the Indians. So much stuff becomes more clear when I'm reading on a normal basis. I mean, on a regular basis. So you put in roots that we were off this ship from Africa, when in reality we were here. We were speaking our own language. You enslaved us, and when we started to speak our language again, then that's probably when the beating came in at. And let me see if I have. Let me think. Here it is. I might have it on here. Let me see. No, that ain't it. Okay. Y'all give me a minute. And I'm going to stop in a minute. I'm just going to go over what's on my junk drive. Hopefully, it's here. And then you have these people on your land telling you that you need to go back to Africa. It's too much knowledge out here to pretend that all of this is lies. Let me see. Okay, it might be here. It's good. Yeah. What's the first page? This is it, huh? And let's see what names. Yeah, I really should have been gone. Well, this is like an addiction. Y'all know how this knowledge is. The Arapaho, the Cheyenne. Okay, I thought it would have something about these wars. We know that it was something I had that had something about the United States. Okay, I'm not even gonna do that because now I'm 40 minutes in and not on purpose. But I'm gonna upload this. That was about the Comanche. Let me see if I can find a shorter one. A couple of people told me they find out. My homegirl Larissa, Sioux. My sister said something else, but I have yet to find her tribe. So we're gonna go ahead and do Larissa's. See if it's in here. Okay, the Sioux. The term Sioux is used to refer to 7 different tribal families, which in turn are organized into 3 further units: the Teton, also called the Lakota/Dakota, the Yankton, and the Santee. The peoples that collectively came to be known as the Sioux were settled on the upper Mississippi River in Minnesota by the 1500s. Back then, they didn't call themselves the Sioux, but went under the name of the 7 Council Fires. Each of the 7 fires, of course, symbolized a nation, and those 7 nations were Medewakanton, and that's Medewakanton, the Wahpeton, Wahpeton, and the Wahpekute, and that's Wahpekute. The Siston, and that's Sisseton. The Yankton, the Yanktonai, and the Teton Lakota. And that's Yankton, Yankton, Yanktonai, and the Teton/Lakota, Lakota. These tribes would all meet together once a year to discuss any tribal matters, also to renew friendships with one another. They will also choose their 4 leaders at this time. The last time that the 7 Fires met was in 1850, and the first time that they were recorded as Sioux was when the French interpreter Jean Nicolet noted the word in 1640. And it says Sioux Treaty of Fort Laramie. Okay, and see y'all. I said I wasn't gonna do it. This is the book I'm reading. The Sioux on page 438. And what we're gonna do is go over here since we already here. Y'all, I really want to meditate today. Let's look up the Treaty of Fort. Oh, what do you know? What do you know? Okay. The Fort Laramie Treaty of 1851 was signed on September 17th between the United States Treaty Commissioners and representatives of the Cheyenne, Sioux, Arapaho, Crow, and Assiniboine, Mandan, Hidatsa, and Arikara nations. And why not just, put the whole thing? The treaty is an agreement between 9 or more or less independent parties. The treaty set forth traditional territorial claims of the tribes as among themselves. The United States acknowledged that all the land covered by the treaty was Indian territory and did not claim any part of it. The boundaries agreed to in the Fort Laramie Treaty of 1851 would be used to settle a number of cases in the 20th century. The Native Americans guaranteed safe passage for settlers on the Oregon Trail and allowed roads and forts to be built in their territories. We let them in return for promises of annuity in the amount of $50,000 for 50 years. The treaty should also make an effective and lasting peace among the 8 tribes, each of them often at odds with a number of the others. So for protection and money, okay? Now, I'm going to leave that alone. This is our history. This is our people. This is why we're lost. We sold each other out, tribe after tribe, across the nation. And where we are now is where we are. Until we wake up and realize this is our home, this is our land, then, it is what it is. And I'm going to close this video out sharing this right here. Brother Lex will, okay, I'll wait. Brother Lex will share the video with us. I'm just going to share it while we're here. And peace and power to y'all. When this goes off, I'm going to be done.
All right, so we got a comment from Nubu. Oh, yeah. Okay, we got a comment from someone. Okay, thanks. Really appreciate the comment. And it says, check this out. So we're going to go ahead and click that.
Okay. Hold on, y'all. Let me see if he linked it. For some reason, when everybody is sharing a video, I'm just gonna let it play.
Anuki Makunubu Yunat Sagar Wahaza Kalun Bi Ukspu Kalun Chasidin Wahid.
This is my first time seeing
I'm Chief
this.
Nani Shabo Ale of the Atsikata Nation of Yamasee Moors, and this is Weekly Word 51. We're going to show a video that was done on the Edmonton Sun. This is Black History Month recognized in Alberta. And this is where Premier Rachel Notley and Minister of Culture and Tourism Ricardo Miranda announced that Alberta will officially recognize Black History Month for the first time in 419 years.
In our country and province represents a crucial part of who we are. It's important that we hold Black experience in our country and province represents a crucial part of who we are. It's important that we hold tight to this history so future generations will know the struggles of Black families and how they overcame those struggles and how they continue to fight to overcome. In the last few decades, Alberta's Black community has grown greatly with the influx of women, men, and families from Africa and the Caribbean. Today, Alberta is proud to have amongst the largest Black populations in all of Canada. Our diversity is our strength, which is why we welcome people and families from all over the world.
I get, hey Jesse, where are you from? And I say, well, from Alberta. Okay, but no, where are you from? Well, as it turns out, I'm 4 generations Albertan.
Hey, okay, now, this brother here, this Black guy here, who's an actor and entrepreneur, Jesse Lipscomb, he was at an event we held a couple Mondays back. And we were explaining the reason why we should stop calling ourselves Black and start calling ourselves white. He was there in attendance. We presented all the information and everything to him. And to say one is a 4th generation Albertan, that's not something to be proud of when it took the province 419 years to recognize you. So we gave him the information on the SF-181, the iPads, the information on the Crow, the definitions of Black, white, etc. And it's interesting for Black History Month again, they keep going back to the Black. That's programming. So I'm sure he will see this. No disrespect toward you, but we just know that you're still under programming.
And it's fair that before I was Albertan, there might have been settlers, and before that they were slaves, and maybe it's a little foggy of who I was before that, but what I know is I'm an Albertan, a proud Albertan. And
well, Alberta is a company registered on the United States Securities and Exchange Commission, and it's officially called Her Majesty the Queen and Right of the Province of Alberta as represented by Alberta Investment Management Corporation.
Wow.
It's AIMCO for short. So Alberta is a corporation. As you can see in the back here with the flags that they have gold maple leafs on the top. That is a symbol of maritime admiralty law. So they have the flag of Canada, Alberta, back, they rotate them back and forth. They're in the Alberta legislature. Now, for everybody to know, this was done when the legislature was closed. This was not put on the record when the legislature was in session. So again, it shows how much they care about Black people. Why not put it on the public record? In the Caribbean, people who call it nationality. They are white. They are not Black. Why do I keep reiterating that? Indigenous people, which the province of Alberta has endorsed, they have to tell people from the Caribbean, people who call themselves Black, people call themselves Black Albertans, people who call themselves Black Africans or Africans, they have to tell them commercially that they are white. They are not Black. Why do I keep reiterating that? Here is a video. Black is a status, not a nationality.
Well, the Dred Scott decision, which was handed down by the Supreme Court in 1857, is one of the most famous or infamous decisions in all of the history of the Supreme Court. And it arose out of some complicated issues, but what it basically had to do with was the power of Congress to prohibit slavery in the Western territories. Dred Scott had been brought as a slave into the territory of Wisconsin, where slavery had been barred by Congress, and later he sued for his freedom on the ground that he had been in a place where slavery had been abolished and therefore should be considered free. And this goes all the way up through various courts, and the Supreme Court eventually rules, no, Dred Scott's not free, because two reasons. One, Congress does not have the right to prohibit slavery in the territories, and this basically declares the Republican Party unconstitutional.
For those that didn't hear it, you heard it again. It declares the Republican Party unconstitutional. Continue.
The Republican platform, Lincoln's platform, which is to prohibit slavery in the territories, the Supreme Court said you can't do that. Slavery is a right to go anywhere within the country in a territory, not a state. A state can abolish slavery. Illinois did. But the territories which belong to the whole country, slavery is a right to go there. The second principle put down by Chief Justice Taney in the Dred Scott decision was that blacks cannot be citizens of the United States. In a sense, Dred Scott can't even sue because he's not an American.
Okay, now, Dred Scott can't sue because he's not an American, which means black has no standing at law. But on the flip side of this, if you have no standing, you can't be tried. See, this is what they leave out. You can't try someone who has no standing at law, because then you have to give them equal rights, which that doesn't happen in the courts. So therefore, they're playing a threading a needle, like, okay, we want to get the energy from these commercial cases and get the fiat, but we're not going to give them the right to prevent us from doing that.
This is one of the best examples of this notion of blacks as aliens. Even though he's born here and everything, he is not an American. The American family, as Taney says, is for white people.
Okay, so when we look at the IPEDS, the NCES, the ACRO, the SF-181, and it says the definition of white, you black people have to check off white. This is a legal scholar here, breaking it down. So you don't have to accept it from me. He's telling y'all, and I don't even think he realizes what he just said there.
And in the most famous sentence in that decision, he says, a black man has no rights which a white man is bound to respect. That
Has not changed. Not changed. Not at this Gregorian calendar, February 2nd, 2017. It has not changed. I am white. I am indigenous. This is a commercial monopoly world that we're living in, and if we accept what Bank of America said, we're living a 50% chance we're living in a 3D holographic universe. We're living in a computer simulation. So that's all the more reason why I will not call myself black. I am white. For those that don't like it, don't hate the player, hate the game. This is what the U.S. Department of Education, Canada, is a member of ACRO, and it is a global standard. Black people, stop calling yourselves black. But if you want to call yourselves black, you deserve what they do to you.
Now, he's not saying blacks can be killed with impunity. What he's saying is legally
No, he's not saying that, but that's what happens.
Yes, indeed.
speaking, they are not part of the body politic. They are not part of the we the people that created the Constitution, and therefore they're just outside of the system.
So therefore, he just confessed, since they are outside of the system, they cannot be assimilated into the system because they have no standing at law, they're not human, they have no rights, and they have no rights which a quote-unquote white man was bound to respect. So this is a confession that black people are actually what? Indigenous, outside of the system, and are being forcibly assimilated. Like the Oracle said, when you see a ghost, an apparition, a werewolf, it's the system assimilating something that's doing something they're not supposed to be doing.
They don't have any rights under the Constitution because the Constitution is for white people.
Here we go again. They don't have any rights under the Constitution because the Constitution is for what? White people. So therefore, you must do an SF 181. And we do this every Tuesday for people to change their commercial status from black to white. That's not only in the US, we do it for Canada. We got some people in the Caribbean, even in the UK, that they're getting hip to this and realizing they have to do this because this is global.
Email NicoleNicholas90@gmail.com to be added to the webinar list. NICOLE.
Now this.
NICHOL.
Say that again.
NICOLE NICHOLAS90@gmail.com.
And let's not forget, the Pope Francis said, I encourage the downtrodden to change the world economic order. So we have papal assent and papal authority to do what we're doing.
People have denounced Tony ever since for this, and for good reason, but the fact is this decision was codifying widely held views in American society, North and South. You're blaming the messenger in a sense if you simply hold the Chief Justice responsible for these views. But it's certainly the position that Congress could not stop the westward spread of slavery discredited the Supreme Court in the eyes of large numbers of Northerners, including Lincoln. Lincoln is denouncing them after this and saying, Lincoln, who was a law-abiding guy, says we don't have to recognize this decision. We're going to ignore it. It's a bad decision. And when the Republicans get in, we are not going to abide by the Dred Scott decision. So it shows you how far the sectional dispute has gotten that a guy like Lincoln will say the ruling of the Supreme Court can just be ignored because it's so, wrong-headed.
Okay? So now you have it. Black is a status, not a nationality. So anytime you call yourself black, you are saying you are a slave. This is for all those in the corporation of Alberta who call themselves black. Just to let you all know, when you say you're black, you're telling people via code and language that you are a slave, so they don't have to treat you fairly. To stop your complaining. White power. And that's it for this weekly Word 51. So with that, ignoring all the information that's there. Black is a color, it's an adjective, it is not a noun, it's not a person, place, thing, it's not a language, it is not a culture, it is nothing. Black means you are a slave. And if you continue to keep calling your slave out like that in the public, what is going to happen? They are not going to accept you because you are saying, I'm a slave, treat me bad. So that's your contract. Y'all can stay black. Black is crack. Black is whack. Black is a trap. And all those legislators, politicians, judges, legal eagles all know this. But until you say something, they're not going to change it. So with that, I am white and indigenous. All those in Atsakata Nation, all our associates, allies.
Hey y'all, I don't know what you think. I don't know what you heard, but you did hear. And he pulled up a video. You can go back and go to his channel, watch it, and see who he's watching and showing y'all about. We were thinking about the status, and we were thinking about claiming indigenous, and as we see throughout history, they haven't treated the indigenous nice at all. So this is for the people out there looking to change their status. I got the forms. I'm just waiting to fill them out. I just wanted to have more information on it. So Brother Lex shared this video the other day on his page, and now you've been informed on my page. Peace and power to everyone out there. And I hope you take this and share it with other people. And I'm out of here.